used to defend oversized watches like misunderstood masterpieces. A 47mm Panerai Luminor, heritage. A Breitling Navitimer, the size of a dinner plate, essential. I honestly believed that size was part of the story, a necessary link to history. But here's the uncomfortable truth. I was wrong. I was painfully wrong. Oversized watches aren't misunderstood. They're dinosaurs. And the market has already delivered its verdict. And if you're even thinking about dropping thousands on one of these, you'll want to hear what the numbers and the culture are actually telling us. Here's what's crazy about what's happening right now. In just a few years, Panerai, IWC, and Breitling have quietly lost nearly a quarter of their market position, while slimmer, more versatile pieces have taken their place. The thing nobody's really talking about is that we're witnessing a fundamental shift in what luxury means. Once, size communicated power. Today, it broadcasts something entirely different. But let's rewind, because oversized wasn't always indulgent. Panerai didn't build 47mm cases for Instagram flexing. They were survival tools for the Italian Navy frogmen in the 1930s. Massive, high legibility dials that meant the difference between life and death. IWC's Big Pilot, a cockpit gauge strapped to the wrist so World War II aviators could read time through fogged goggles and thick gloves. Breitling's Navitimer, a wearable flight computer for pilots when cockpit instruments were primitive. Back then, function dictated size. Bigger wasn't bolder, it was necessary. But when those tools left the battlefield and entered the boardrooms in the 90s, function turned to fetish. Stallone wore enormous Panerais on screen. Schwarzenegger flexed Breitlings the size of small saucers. Even normal-sized celebrities like Tom Cruise, smaller people, jumped on the trend, making their wrists look like they were being eaten alive by their timepieces. And the new cultural equation was born. Bigger equals better. What no one saw coming was the crash, when luxury itself completely changed its language. The data shows a clear collapse in demand for these oversized statement pieces. But what really killed these watches wasn't just proportion. Maybe it sounds a bit philosophical, but hear me out. What changed isn't just fashion, it's how we show status today. For boomers and Gen X, a large watch meant something. It was a wrist-borne power statement, the equivalent of a corner office. But millennials and Gen Z, we've rejected that psychology entirely. We crave versatility, proportion, quiet authenticity. And I say we because, full disclosure, I'm actually Gen X. But apparently I've joined the millennials in their quiet luxury rebellion. My teenage kids would be so proud. Jokes aside, I'm a card-carrying member of the Please Keep It 42mm or Under committee. Every time I try on an oversized piece now, I feel like I'm wearing my dad's clothes. To us, a 46, 47, 48mm watch doesn't say success, it says try hard. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. What we're witnessing isn't just a trend, it's a profound shift in how luxury signals status. The 2000s were all about loud luxury, logos, excess, visible power. Today, quiet luxury, subtle, understated, and refined. We watch enthusiasts are a weird bunch, right? We obsess over millimeters and movement complications, spend hours a day researching and going down rabbit holes. Yet, sometimes we miss the obvious market signals staring us right in the face. Full disclosure, I've fallen for this myself. I bought an Oris Big Crown Timer chronograph at 46mm because I wanted to believe the marketing. I still have this watch because it pains me to basically give it away at its secondary value. And sometimes I look at my collection and think, what was I thinking? We've all been there if you've collected long enough. You know who you are. Quick poll, what's the biggest watch you've ever worn? Drop the size in the comments. I'm curious if anyone is rocking over 47mm. Now, let me break down in simple terms what's actually happening with these oversized watch brands. The first reason might not surprise you because it's been hiding in plain sight all along. Problem 1, the proportion paradox. Look, I'm not hating on people with massive wrists. If you're built like Dwayne Johnson, a behemoth watch might actually look proportional. But for 95% of us with wrists between 6.5 and 7.5 inches, we're walking around with miniature billboards strapped to our arms, and no amount of heritage marketing can fix that awkward proportion. From what I've observed at formal events, trying to pair a big boy Panerai with a modern Tom Ford suit is practically impossible. It's like hiding a hockey puck in a silk sleeve. You'll spend half the night tugging at your cuff, fighting the bulk strapped to your wrist. Human wrists haven't grown, but watches did. IWC's Big Pilot at 46.2 millimeters with a lug-to-lug of 57 millimeters and a thickness of 15.6 millimeters will literally hang off most wrists. Panerai's 47 millimeter Luminor has the same issue, and while Breitling has started to course correct, their iconic models from the 2000s were equally unwearable for most. Even when these brands release smaller models, they can't shake their reputation. They're trapped by the perception as the big watch guys. But here's where it gets even worse for these brands, because the second problem isn't just about aesthetics, it's about cold, hard cash. Problem 2, the silent wallet killer. Here's the thing about these numbers that really matters. The market doesn't negotiate with nostalgia. According to Morgan Stanley Annual Watch Report in 2024, Panerai fell from 13th to 18th in Swiss brand rankings in just 6 years. IWC dropped from 10th to 14th between 2018 and 2024. Breitling flatlined while Rolex and Omega surged ahead. Think about that for a second. Brands with a century of heritage sliding down the rankings while others climb. That's not a blip. It's an insane reality. The Watches and Wonders industry report shows IWC's sales volume plummeted from 137,000 units in 2023 to just 120,000 in 2024, a 12.4% decline in a single year. I mean, what? That's the market collectively saying, no thanks, we'll pass. And trust me, in an industry that celebrates 3% growth as a victory lap, a 12.4% decline is basically a full-fledged house fire. Let me put this in simple terms. According to Watch Charts data from Q1 2025, a Big Pilot and a GMT Master 2 both retail around $14K. The Rolex not only holds value, but typically appreciates 15 to 20% beyond retail. The Big Pilot, you're lucky if it retains 65% by the time you leave the boutique. And that's the real problem with these oversized pieces. It's not just that they're too big or they're out of style. It's that they shatter trust. When you drop 5 figures on a so-called luxury watch and it bleeds a third of its value before you even walk out the door, you don't just feel burned, you start questioning the brand itself. And once that trust is gone, it's almost impossible to win it back. For Breitling specifically, their pre-2020 large models have seen consistent depreciation of 4 to 7% annually, while their newer, smaller pieces have stabilized. And I'm not trying to sound like a doomsayer, but when you hear this, the ultimate luxury taboo, official price reductions has become reality for both IWC and Panerai in 2024 and 2025. I mean, that's unheard of in this industry. And Breitling now authorizes dealer discounts that would have been grounds for termination just a few years ago. In an industry built on exclusivity and value preservation, these are financial equivalents of distress signals. As bad as the size and value problems are, there's something even more fundamentally holding these brands back, something they can't seem to escape no matter how hard they try. Problem 3. Trapped by their own legend. Honestly, I'm genuinely rooting for these brands, which is why it's so frustrating. Each is trapped by their own heritage in a different way. For IWC, the Big Pilot is both their greatest asset and their biggest liability. It's instantly recognizable, instantly tied to the brand, and instantly alienating to most wrists. I went into a boutique last month and asked to see their Mark 20. The sales associate kept trying to show me the Big Pilot instead. I finally had to say, look, I don't have Incredible Hulk wrist. Can we please just look at 40 millimeter models? And listen, it was annoying at best, but honestly, I was witness to a tone-deaf brand. Today, right now, their marketing quietly says, well, we also make normal size watches while screaming Big Pilot. The result, a brand that should be competing with JLC and Omega is instead fighting for attention in a crowded mid-tier luxury space. Panerai faces a different identity crisis. Their very DNA is welded to the 47mm cushion case. Their Douai line 38 to 42mm was launched in 2018 as their direct response to the size problem. But there's a paradox. Purists dismiss these smaller models as not real Panerais, while mainstream buyers still perceive the entire brand as oversized. According to Watchbox's collector data, while contemporary Panerai models have declined by 22% in value over the past 5 years, vintage pre-Vendôme Panerai watches made before 1997 have actually appreciated by 9%. Collectors are retreating to the older and smaller models while rejecting the modern oversized pieces. The result? Panerai is caught between two audiences, alienating traditionalists while failing to attract new buyers. They're creating the not-for-us watch for everyone. Breitling spent the 2000s drowning in polished steel and hyper-masculine marketing. Under George Kern since 2017, they've executed the cleanest repositioning of the three. Navitimer down to 41 and 43 millimeters, Super Ocean streamlined, and a complete overhaul of their marketing aesthetics. I'll admit, I was a total Breitling skeptic a few years ago. The old pieces felt like something my midlife crisis uncle would wear. But I've tried on their new 41mm Navitimer, and damn, it looks fantastic on the wrist. Sporty, but not bulky, and a nice wrist presence without obnoxiously overpowering everything. Their transformation is real. What's telling is Breitling's most recent acquisition of Universal Genève, a brand known for its classic and modestly sized pieces from the mid-century. It signals that they recognize where the market is heading, yet they're pursuing this direction through a separate brand rather than fully committing to it within their core collection. So, what unites these three iconic brands? They're not just fighting market trends, they're fighting their own institutional memory. When your greatest successes came from these mammoth cases, suggesting to them a 39mm future feels like surrender, not strategy. In contrast, I look at my Rolex Submariner, a watch that's barely changed size in 70 years, and think about it. They never needed to backpedal because they never overreached. Rolex's professional line never exceeded 44 millimeters. Their icon stayed at wearable, timeless proportions. Omega, the Speedmaster remained 42 millimeters, evolving in movement, not circumference. And it's been on astronauts' wrists and in collectors' boxes since the 1960s. Cartier, JLC, and Patek, they simply ignored the bigger is better wave entirely, preserving restrained elegance that outlasted every trend cycle. I remember having a conversation with a veteran watch dealer who said something that stuck with me. Consistency and proportion creates trust, and trust, especially in luxury, is everything, and he is absolutely right. They succeeded because they never confused history with bloat. These brands understood a fundamental truth. A watch that can't be worn is just an expensive paperweight. The numbers are brutal, but the boardroom drama behind these stats, that's where the real story gets interesting. Each brand is fighting this battle in their own way, and each is making a different critical mistake. There's one strategy these brands could employ that would save them, but only one has shown any signs of considering it. Let me break down the best case, worst case, and most likely scenarios. These are just my opinions, but I believe there's a path forward for each brand. For IWC to escape the Big Pilot shadow, they need to reposition it as a halo piece, not a flagship. Cut the endless variations and make it an annual special release that collectors can anticipate. Refocus marketing on wearable models by allocating 70% of the budget to sub 41mm pieces like the Engineer and the Mark 20. Make the Engineer the face of IWC's evolution, emphasizing its versatility, 35 to 40mm sizing, and modern design. Panerai needs to break the heritage trap by rebranding the Due line as Panerai Contemporary. Not a compromise, but a modern equal to the Luminor and Radio Mirror lines. They should phase out at least 30% of oversized models within the next 18 months, signaling a real commitment to change. A dedicated 38 to 40mm Radio Mirror collection without the bulky crown guard could leverage its slimmer aesthetic for broader appeal. Here's a thought experiment. If you were the CEO of Panerai for just one day, what would your first move be to fix their problem? Now, Breitling is already showing promising signs. They need to make more of their smaller models permanent, not limited editions. Show buyers that wearable sizing isn't a side project, it's a new direction. A signature 38 to 40mm aviation-inspired halo piece could create a new icon for the modern buyer who values proportion while still introducing them to their heritage design language. The worst case, if these brands double down on big equals identity, they drift into luxury obscurity. I don't want to see that happen, but the numbers don't lie. Most likely, we'll see a hybrid approach, slow, selective resizing paired with smarter marketing campaigns to reframe perception over years, not quarters. Breitling is already on this path. IWC appears to be testing the waters with their Engineer relaunch, and Panerai remains the most resistant to change. The brands that will survive understand this. Adapting is not betrayal, it's relevance, and relevance is what pays the bills. The clock is literally ticking for these watchmakers. Each quarter of declining sales, each discounted flagship model, each stubborn millimeter of case diameter they won't reduce, these aren't just numbers on screen. They're the heartbeat of heritage brands flatlining before our eyes. So, what is the oversized watch problem, ultimately? It's brands being trapped by their own legend. And the question remains, which of these storied companies will write their next chapter and which will remain frozen in time? Before I go, if you're nodding along thinking, I want a watch that actually fits under my cuff, I've got something special for you. Every month in our community, we give away exactly that kind of watch. Perfectly proportioned pieces you'll actually wear, not just admire. You can be entered into these giveaways, get early access to videos like this one before anyone else sees them, and speak directly to us with a one-on-one video call. Perks start at just $2 a month. No pressure, it's just our way of thanking the people who make this channel possible. I'm curious about two things. Which of these three brands do you think has the biggest identity crisis right now? And which do you think has the best shot at turning things around? The comments section is going to be interesting on this one. Until next time, wear in good health.